All right.
Take the elevator. It leads to the
Thanks, Dr. Demichev. Um, so yeah, in case the previous part wasn't clear enough, apparently for some weird reason, now the Soviet Union is in the hands of sorry, Dr. Demichev, the one we talked instead is Dr. Borisov. My bad, I got confused with the names. And as such, we need to find just whatever the fuck is going on. Well, for starters, let's have another upgrade.
And we
If I
get...
thought correctly, this one revolves, yeah, the valves. Sorry, the small lamps on the valves. There we go.
Beep.
We get devil
So
horns.
what this allows us to do, this particular deadlock, it allows us to create essentially a time bubble which slows everything inside it. This is actually good mostly for puzzle solving, but it has its usefulness in combat as well. Well, again, if you consider it consumes energy, you might as well just spend it to do something else. There we go. And you can also use the TMD to actually shrink it back if you want to. Again, there is some practicality.
Yeah, I can see.
But I argue that sadly the game does not present that many situations but they cannot be just solved with a shootout. Go on, Dej.
Yeah, I can definitely see the Bioshock influence here.
Even
He's
kind of
holding
with
out
the
his hand and whatnot.
even kind of with the
mentioned that
HUD.
prior, but yeah. I mean, and you know what? I'll admit, while it definitely wears its influence on its sleeve, it doesn't feel too shameless or lazy about it so far.
Also, like I said, I don't mind the idea of this, considering again, this was a time where Activision was in desperate need of new IPs, and this one was trying to do something different than being an average COD clone.
And you know
so
what?
at the very least, I commend Raven Studios for actually trying, even though unfortunately the troubled development cycle, made things so much more unbearable.
Like, to give it credit, one of my big compliments about Bioshock was how it definitely seemed to be trying to revolutionize.
Unfortunately, the sewers are kind of infested, as you can imagine.
But yeah, one of my compliments about Bioshock was like, well, it really did try to revolutionize the first-person shooter genre. So, hey, if, making it so that FPS games weren't, just typical Call of Duty clones, by all means, take inspiration from Bioshock. I definitely feel like it had a good idea on how to revolutionize stuff.
Also, yes, this introduces these particular insect enemies, which are a pain in the ass. The shotgun can do some decent, crowd clearing out of these, but it's still there still can be a bit problematic in actually dealing with them. As soon as you see some of their nests, which are like these boils, of course, which get highlighted by the TMD, use it because anyone has the potential of actually potentially spawning one out of nowhere. It's slightly randomized, so you're never too careful on that.
Shame about what would become a Bioshock with Infinite. Not necessarily terrible, but yeah, again, Infinite feels like that game that we needed at the time, but in hindsight, people realized, hey, maybe Bioshock 2 had a better idea of where to go with things rather than...
Okay.
Bioshock Infinite took inspiration from Sucker Punch.
The movie?
Potentially, yeah.
Or the games company?
No, the movie, because the game company drove as you can, if you know, remember the guys who did not just Live but also Infamous, which in terms of actual, showcasing is anything but similar to Bioshock.
Which would have confused me if that's what Dej meant, unless he was talking about, say, in tone and style and sense of action.
But the the thing is that I don't really, and on one hand, I don't really entirely blame the company because, again, Bioshock had established itself to be a decent kind of franchise, so we probably wanted to capitalize on that, both for them and for 2K games. On the other hand, again, that one also had its own travel development cycle. If you forgot, the first trailer showcased a couple of stuff that it's not in the game at all. And there's also the very not necessarily questionable, but those moments where the game assumes the audience is beyond stupid. Like at the very beginning, the infamous scene of the bell puzzle, where the game literally stops for a second as the character says, "Wait a minute, that card," and holds the solution right into your face. Like that's beyond, that's beyond treating your audience like being stupid. I'm sorry.
You're talking about Infinite, right?
Yes, Drew, that's what I just said.
Like, I mean, again, I can get why people loved Infinite at first, because for some reason everyone thought Bioshock 2 was too much of the same thing, even though it technically really wasn't. It changed up quite a few things. And Bioshock Infinite, I fear, went in the way of trying to change too much. Now, mind you, trying to change the scenario from not being Rapture again, that I get. What I don't care for is how it threw out one of the things that made Bioshock Bioshock. The sense of choice you had, which could be very integral to it. Now you were railroaded, more or less. Oh, sure, yeah. Oh,
it still lives after all this time.
Well, that's not foreboding at all.
Oh no.
Giant enemy crab.
Oh.
Attack weak point for massive damage.
Here's hoping.
I'll give him credit, it's a nice extra touch that the tape recordings you find are often damaged and not perfectly intact. You have to fix them.
But I won't stay 1 second longer than necessary. There's too many bizarre things happening. The island's gone mad.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
But there's also the fact that you were saying about, not necessarily having to be another retreading of Rapture. But again, I know that it's taking spoilers, but to be fair, these game spoilers are very well known these days. But by the end of it, basically retroactively, attached to it, and the DLC outright makes it important for it.
Okay, I'll admit by the DLC... okay, yes, I get it. You want to make it a full circle and everything with the DLC. It's just that, man, I don't know. Making it so that literally all this amounted to was a glorified prequel for Bioshock 1 and 2 seems
which
really
also kind
weird.
of undermines the effort of your protagonist in the first game to an extent.
Again, Bioshock Infinite feels like one of those games that, yes, the public felt that they needed, but as time passed, people started to see the cracks. Oh, goody.
Gone.
As time went by, people started to realize, hey, we actually had a good thing going with Bioshock 2, and, well, yeah, Bioshock Infinite kind of shot itself in the foot in regards to trying to be completely original. Now, tying it to Rapture, that's fine, but you know what? I get it, arguably in the main campaign, the stuff involving Rapture is like tail-end stuff and used to defeat Songbird.
It's not just that, even in terms, because, oh shit. The entire gimmick about that is, well, I know that it's more of a meme these days, but it was used intelligently at back then, the idea of an actual parallel universe is, though in a more strict way, as in, not too much differences, between each other, only a very specific, one in each.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. The problem was when they tried to tie it in, and hell, it got to the point where literally some of the actions of certain characters in the main campaign were revealed to have been influenced all along.
Yeah, like the creation of the tonics.
Or
like
the whole stuff with...
retroactively making them, subproduct of the plasmids. Oh shit!
You're okay. You're
that was
fine.
apparently Troy Baker screaming. Okay then.
Oh! That narrowly missed him.
I mean, it'd be a pretty short game if it hit him, Joe, to be fair.
Attacked the tower. Catherine distracted them while I headed here. That was a very close call. Come up here. We have much to discuss.
Okay.
Here, I thought we were gonna have a
So
boss
the last
encounter with
section-
that giant monster.
I'm sure we'll never see it again. But yeah, I don't really understand a bit, completely this, because the level starts with you having to leave the tower with Dr. Barrios of Safety staying behind on purpose and that. But instead, after that small section with the sewers, you're having this other section where you're also united with Dr. Barrios and needs to talk to you some more about it. And it wasn't like that much time has passed too much, so it makes the level comes across kind of like a bit of, padding more than anything. And to look, I know that I've been harsh towards sewer levels over the years and everything, but the one that we just passed was fine. Nothing, that I actively hate. But I just question, the pacing in terms of, story beats. Weird. Again, probably another subproduct of how the game was mangled, and recobbled together from its development.
Probably. Actually, yeah. Do you have anything else to share about this game?
Unfortunately, no. I only found very scarce information, and sadly, we don't really have a what happened kind of episode, anywhere on the internet. I should probably ask in the upcoming weeks, depending on how much time it takes for us to do, if anyone on some boards like /B knows a bit more about it. Again, I knew about the thing about enemies being regressed as children, but that was something that I learned, on my own later. Oh, thank you for the alpaca. But other than that, is documented information that I checked. There is sadly isn't much. So
what's the
I'll
overall?
have to rely on what people tell me.
So the overall sum up of what went wrong is, well, Activision were
Again,
Activision.
like I said, okay. Partially, because again, like you said, we do know now that around this time, Activision was not really kind with its studios, internally, and some weird shit was happening all over the place. But again, the major problem of development, allegedly at the very least, but we don't know, is that. Oh no. Sure, I can see that it worked out. We do know that Raven is a company that works mostly on PC games and not much on their console ports. But when they prepared the game in scope, they had in mind the idea of mostly a PC release, but the console versions proved to be more difficult to handle. And that was basically what stalled the game too much until they were forced to actually restart from scratch. Like I said in the past, this is not too uncommon. A lot of games never end up in the final product the way they were conceived at start. I mentioned this also in our Dark Souls run, but it's worth repeating. A lot of From Software products tend to basically be this, where NPCs' locations are basically scrambled altogether, and in the final product they're never in the original placement they were originally conceived where. So it's not too uncommon to see this kind of practice being done in video games, but this was a case where it nearly got the game canceled, as I mentioned, until someone of the executives, stopped and actually told them to repurpose. Okay, I think the thing that can be compared with would be probably LA Noire to an extent, because something similar to that happened. But as far as I know, at least allegedly, again, with less corporate bullying for this. If it turns out that if it turns out that it did eventually happen, I'm fully prepared to expect. But for the time being, from what I know, that's really not what happened. What with LA Noire, we do know that the main guy in charge was kind of an asshole.
Yeah, that's the thing. It got to the point where I think Rockstar just took the game from him because for being a dickhead, and because his his search for perfectionism was getting to the point where
It was abusive.
draining their resources. So
Then I can get you to the other side.
What a shame,
Alright.
too.
Alright, for this, Dr. Barisov is telling us, and he basically just told us that Demichev, men are actually right after us, and we need to reach, I forgot her name, Katrina, I think, towards essentially the railway system so we can move towards the next part of the island.
Now would be a good time for that giant beast to come out and accidentally help us by taking down his men.
Unfortunately, that's not what's happening.
Figures. Only thing works when it's convenient for itself.
Also remember, okay, it wanted to be a bit different from the average COD, but this was still around in the time where, shooters were on this kind of, caliber were on the rampage, so of course they still wanted to have at least a couple of full-on shootout sections.
I guess
like
to be
this.
fair, it does help differentiate itself from BioShock as well, because
Bioshock had the shootout section, but because of having more extravagant, equipment and the aid of the plasmids or the tonics, you did mix and match. Here you just only have the TMD, which does allow you some creativity, but it's relatively limited.
I would argue that the blatant shootouts really became a thing in Infinite. I will admit that there were some shootouts in the original too, but they were definitely more mixed with melee, whereas by Infinite, yeah, it's definitely more shooter-esque. And mind you, I don't want to come off like Infinite is suddenly now this terrible game. Like, it does do some good stuff. It's just that I'll admit, I was never on the whole praise Infinite but hate BioShock 2 train that a lot of people seem to be on for some reason. So if anything, I feel mainly vindication from how history turned out to be. Also, it turns out that the development for the next BioShock game is going better than whatever Ted Levine's working on.
Yeah. Again, we were talking about bad people in charge. Ted Levine was not exactly the best person to have for irrational games.
So it turns out that what we may have
Because
needed...
the thing is, whenever he played a video game, he'd be like, "Hey, he wants it to." He's like, "I like this. Let's make our game like this." So, and then they had to restart some
Oh
things.
my god, he's George Broussard 2.0, isn't he?
Was Infinite the last game he's released?
I think.
Levine? Yeah, he's whatever he's been working on.
We never got a Bioshock until the announcement of very recently we were getting a new one, but it's more like of a reboot than anything.
I will admit,
So-
given what you just told us about Ted Levine, that really does make me wonder if that may
Let me
be
check.
kind of why Bioshock Infinite turned out the way it did, because no, that game takes inspiration
Potentially.
from a lot of stuff, arguably even Last of Us. And it ended up coming out the same year as Last of Us 2. When I say 2, I mean TOO, not the actual
sorry, his name is
sequel.
Ted Levine.
To be fair, Jova, the second game is labeled as Part 2, so it's easy to understand the difference.
Yeah.
Part 2 was in the dumping.
Let me check. Ted Levine.
Ken.
You sure? I
Okay.
could have sworn it was Ted Levine.
I thought
No,
it was Levine.
because Ted Levine is actually an actor, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, he's that guy from Monk.
Zack Snyder chats with Ken Levine on irrational interviews.
Oh, great.
Wait, Zack Snyder had a talk with Ken Levine?
Yeah,
What is even the connection?
that's why I says like he took notes from the Sucker Punch movie.
Okay, I don't know if it actually left, if he actually left the Bioshock development team, probably. But the only thing that is mentioned here is that he has in program one ghost story, quote unquote, type of games upcoming in the future, but nothing much more on it.
Interesting.
Oh, there we go. Oh, okay, no, that's because Ghost Story is actually the rebranding name of what was Irrational Games. There we go. because it went in the font in 2017. That is probably also why we waited. 2K waited a while before actually doing, announcing a new Bioshock, because we did not really have a team, to do that.
I wonder, what do you think Bioshock 4 is going to entail?
Like he said, it probably is a reboot, but again, I don't. Let me see if it's mentioned specifically. It's developed by a new internal studio called Cloud Chamber, with offices in San Francisco. The studio is led by Kelly Gilmore. Kelly Gilmore, who has previously worked on at Fireaxe studio. What have they done?
Games.
Oh, Sid Meier stuff, like Civilization.
Huh.
Sure. Okay, they also work on the modern XCOM games, so sure, I can believe that. The lead staff include Argento Scott Sinclair, who worked on the first Bioshock, blah, blah. It's not mentioned specifically if it wants to be a reboot or a sequel, but I'm positive it's probably is a reboot.
I mean, it could work either way, because, the fan base
By
is
what the status quo is established in Infinite, yeah, I guess they can do whatever the fuck they want now.
I mean, heck, for all we know, maybe it'll be a sequel to Bioshock 2, take place after the events of that. Rapture supposedly sunk at that point, but hey, maybe take it into the far future or whatnot. I don't know.
That's System Shock being the far future, and I don't think 2K owns that IP. EA actually wanted to try to actually own it at some point, believe it or not. And I mean, in a period where EA was releasing mostly good games, so around the PS2, GameCube, original Xbox era, remember, System Shock was mostly, first and foremost, a PC type of game. If I recall correctly, it had one or two potential console ports, but I'm not completely sure about that.
Oh yeah, speaking of...
Hold on, give me a second, Waves. EA wanted to have a System Shock 3 and had their studio Redwood Games do it, but unfortunately they discovered they could not have the IP, so they actually organized, rebranded the studio in a sense of renamed it into Visceral, and decided to make an original IP, Do Not Steal, following System Shock as a guide. That game turned out to be Dead Space. So that's pretty cute. Go on, Waves.
I was just going to say, speaking of EA... I can't believe that I'm pretty soon I'm going to live in a world where the FIFA series doesn't exist.
And nothing of value was lost at this point.
Whoa. No.
No,
FIFA
hold on.
Is a huge deal.
Hold on.
So,
I said at this point, though, because those games have been getting so lackluster at this point that, honestly, some competition and variety in soccer games is needed, because EA clearly weren't concerned with delivering anymore, so let's find someone who actually is.
But Jova, what about eFootball?
The former PES.
Didn't that also die?
No, but
renamed.
I mean, it's not exactly in a good state itself at the minute.
So like I said, hopefully we can get some new talent to work on better soccer games.
The point is that among the series, the franchises, it seems that only between this kind of fall feud and everything, it seems that only Football Manager is actually going strong now.
I gotta say,
that's not even EA. That's Sega.
That's Sega. That's what I mean. Between Konami and EA, it's Sega the one who's actually going on by doing barely anything.
Can't wait till 2K gets the FIFA license.
Honestly, here is the thing. I don't know how rich I find it that, don't get me wrong, both FIFA and EA are terrible companies, but the fact that EA were doing so bad that FIFA actually took notice and said, yeah, okay, we've had enough of you.
Actually, no, Jova, it's only because they imposed a very high, cost for the license. That is the only reason. Anyway, hold on. If you paid attention, the audio logs had told us that a couple of refugees actually eventually went here.
I'm guessing things did not end well for them.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do they meet their ends?
I wish you the best, my friend. I hope to see you on the mainland, surrounded by your family, comrade.
Is it going to be like in Steins Gate where they try to go back in time but turn into green goop?
Oh shit.
I have no
Well,
idea what that means, and I'm just gonna nod my head.
Mezzo scientist, Reg. But no, Joe. Again, the entire reason why the branding name of FIFA fell with EA was just because FIFA became greedy and imposed, too highly of technical of costs. But that's pretty much it.
Well, I mean, I guess take a win where we can. Now, hopefully, they'll get a company that actually is worth their salt at this stuff.
I mean, EA is still going to be making sports games. It's just from 2023, they're going to be under a new name, EAFC or CF, depending on what country you're in.
Here's the ironic thing, though. They've been making big bank on FIFA games, so for them not to have FIFA games means they might actually have to step their game up on their other sports games. Because those did not make nearly as much oodles as the FIFA license was.
Anyway, this particular mini-boss that is there essentially is another case of you testing the new weapon we acquired, in this case the time-freezing bubble, but the crown tanks in the room can also help. Again, the shotgun might be recommended here, but
I wonder.
Again, only when it's potentially stunned like that. Yes.
You think, well, do we ever get an enemy that's like a time mutant? Like, someone who's caught in between time here and there and has become an Eldritch abomination?
The only mutated people that we found are the ones that got, literally mutated by the teacher of Singularity, but nothing more. It's really more like time radiation more than anything.
I guess, if anything, I can give Quantum Break credit for being creative by creating an actual time mutant in that regard. Mind you, they didn't do much with him, but the idea is there.
Yeah, not really much.
Yeah,
he existed.
That's the thing. They implied that Lance Reddick's character is looking at some kind of major abomination, but they never actually show it. I mean, for all I know, he's just staring at two people making out. I don't know.
Wait.
They imply that it's some kind of the guy who worked under the villain of that game.
It's weird.
The guy who's also he's also the villain. Well, not villain, more like anti-hero of the Horizon series.
The black guy drove.
It's funny you mention that because they recently just announced that he's going to be Albert Wesker in that new Resident Evil series.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid having to say. I was trying to avoid to saying the black guy because I can't for the life of me remember his character's name because he's so bland.
No, it's fine.
No.
You can say it's like the black guy from Horizon.
They were also hinting something about him having to take eye medication constantly, but again,
that
it's
never
something
went
that's
anywhere.
more left up in the air or anything.
No, don't get me wrong. I know who Lance Reddick is. Heck, he even showed up in Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, it's just that for a moment I was confused because it's weird. I had just heard the news today that he's apparently going to be Albert Wesker in that new series that Netflix is hosting for Resident Evil. The one that's supposed to be about Wesker's daughters living in...
He was also in one of the John Wick movies.
Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff recently.
He's in all the John Wick movies. He plays the concierge.
I remember that's a French term, but I don't know exactly what it refers to.
Yeah, he's a pretty great actor, honestly. Which is a shame that they wasted him so much in Quantum Break.
Everyone is wasted on Quantum Break, Jova. Even,
the
CIA.
Iceman.
No. I mean, the antagonist, Aidan Gillen. I know that, that's what it's called. But to me, it was always the CIA agent from the beginning of The Dark Knight Rises. Because, come on. Let me see. Wait, it was in the 1998 Godzilla movie for an uncredited role?
Oh my!
Apparently it's one of the soldiers on the Manhattan Bridge doing one of the final sequences where they tangled Zealot into the bridge before killing it.
Judging by your reaction, Dwibs, I'm guessing you're not a fan of that movie.
Well, no. I mean, I haven't seen Godzilla vs. Kong yet, so the jury's out on that one.
It's cool, Saigon.
But that's what I've seen so far. That's the saddest thing. The US had 2 attempts to make a Godzilla movie, and they bungled both of them up for different reasons. One is mind-numbingly stupid, the other is mind-numbingly boring.
Yeah,
I can tell this because I actually see it in theaters. Godzilla vs. Kong is actually a good time because simply for the fact that you do get exactly what you're actually paying for a ticket. Godzilla is in the movie, Kong is in the movie, they beat the shit out of each other. Is it satisfying? Yes. That's all you need to have. Like no, there are nuances to that, different variations and facets onto that. It's not as there you go, group explosion. It's not as also mind-numbing than that. And personally, I still prefer King of the Monsters out of the whole kaiju western movies that Legendary and Warner Bros. Have done. But it's still a very good time. But it's still a very good time, and I'm glad that it actually, despite the pandemic and everything, sold enough for Warner Bros. To actually keep the franchise going, because they did mention that.
Yeah. That's actually what I was going to get at saying. Also, do disagree on the first Legendary Pictures Godzilla movie. I ain't gonna act like it's perfect, but no, I do still hold that's a good movie and did not botch up things like the 1998 flick. And even if you don't like that, we still do have Kingdom of Monsters, which is a fantastic movie. And no, critics...
King of the Monsters.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
Kingdom of Monsters is the comic line, the one that Linkara is reviewing currently. But I have to say... one thing that is a bit disappointing to me for Godzilla vs. Kong, minor, mind you, because it really just is, in the technical compartment, is the score. Not necessarily because it is bad. Apparently it was done by Tom Holkenborg, Junkie XL. It's serviceable for the Institute too. But goddamn, Bear McCreary's score for King of the Monster is just beautiful, and I would not have any other way. I just wish we stuck with him.
Maybe he was busy.
Potentially, who knows? Alright, I think I'm just gonna upgrade here. Again, you may have noticed that there are some particular rooms that can be accessed if you actually manage to find, like, say, the window, because I locked on the other side. But if you find, like, the window, you can manage to, put away, shoot away the lock and actually open the door. And those actually give you, extra goodies and resources for actually managing to open them. So always keep a lookout on everything. But if I recall correctly, yeah, in the next part, if I remember correctly, we'll actually reunite with Catherine and hopefully manage to pass through the grind rail. See ya.
See ya.
Yeah.
Bye.